Okay, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Why Data 14. Today we have quite an interesting topic, crowdsourcing for machine learning. And today our colleagues, friends from Yandex, Toloka, will talk about this topic. Olga, the stage is yours. I'll stop my sharing.
Okay, thank you. I'll start sharing my screen now. Just a moment. Yeah, do you see it?
Yeah. Good. Okay. I encourage everybody to ask questions in chat. We'll also have a couple of breaks for questions. And the overall meetup is going to be a little bit more than 1 hour, probably 1 hour and a half. And we hope you'll stay with us until then.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kostya, for introduction. Yes, you are very welcome to ask questions in a chat. We'll have several breaks to look at the questions and to answer them. And then if we have enough time by the end of the meetup, my colleague Daria will help organize the real-time demo of how the crowdsourcing actually works. So I hope it's going to be interesting. So my name is Olga. I'm head of Telakai or Toloka. Both options of pronunciations are possible. This is the crowdsourcing platform of Yandex, initially created for the purposes of data labeling at a large scale. And today there are several ideas I hope you will take out from this meetup, and I hope we will manage to explain these ideas to you. First of all, since as far as I understand, you all are dealing with data science, you probably all are familiar with Kaggle, and it is in Kaggle where you compete with the others within a given data set, and you actually do not care where this data set has been taken from. But in the real world and in real industry, you always compete within the whole pipeline of machine learning production, of which one of the crucial parts is actually the training data which you use for building your models. So those who know how to manage the data labeling on a large scale actually get a very strong advantage. The second idea that I hope we will manage to illustrate is that in the same way as you would not, being a company, for example, you would not want to outsource the expertise in machine learning as being one of the key technological expertise of modern days. In the same way, actually, you would not want to outsource the expertise in data labeling because, as we'll hopefully will show, the whole process of production in machine learning relies on the data labeling. And lastly, I hope that we will see that actually data labeling on a large scale is a purely engineering and mathematical task. It has very little to do with classical people management, but it has a lot to do with engineering and building up automated pipelines, which are dealing with the crowd as with, roughly speaking, yet another computer cluster. So whichever sphere of AI do we take, by the way, it would be interesting if you shared with us in the chat what is your sphere of interest and which area of AI implementations are you working with. Well, the irony is that the majority of AI solutions require data labeled by human, and actually on a very large scale. And the more AI increases and develops, the more human labeled data is needed. And we see this trend for a dozen years already, and it's not going to change in any near future. And actually, there are three main pillars the AI stands on. These are algorithms, hardware, and the training data. And the first two have already become commodities, while data is still a bottleneck. I am personally, well, as Kostya said, we are from Yandex, and Yandex, being a Russian internet giant, actually started as a search engine company. And I personally come from the search team. That's why I will start with an example from the search to illustrate the need of the label data. But then we will pass through examples of many different other spheres. So how does it work when the industrial company is created the search and developing ranking formulas for the search? So we have some pool of training data. We have some production algorithm that works day by day and all the users are seeing it in production. And we have a team of engineers who are constantly developing new versions of the formula, new algorithms. And then what we need to do. First, we need to understand the quality of our current production and somehow evaluate it on a regular basis. And also we need to somehow estimate the quality of those new algorithms that have been developed. And of course, we cannot, from the very beginning, send those new versions of the algorithm to real users. At first, we need to somehow evaluate its quality offline. And those algorithms which show good quality on the offline evaluation are sent to classical A/B testing on the users. And then the algorithm which constantly outperforms the production, both in offline and online evaluation, becomes a new production. And even if we roughly calculate the number of blocks on this scheme, we would see that like in half of them, we actually rely on human label data. You would need human labels to collect the training pool. You would need human labels to calculate metrics of quality of the new formulas and to evaluate the quality of current production one. And also you would definitely want these evaluations to be rather fast and to get the estimations of the quality within several hours. You would not want to wait for weeks or months until this evaluation is received. So one of the outcomes from this image is that, well, roughly speaking, half of the whole search quality process actually depends on human evaluation. And the second thing that we see here is that there are two very simple and trivial ways of improving the quality of AI-based product. First of all, this is the training data. The more training data you use as an input, the better quality you get. It's rather trivial. And other thing is that the faster validation and implementation of new models you have, the faster you can run, the faster you can develop your product. And actually, to achieve both these needs, you need to know how to scale your data labeling. And if you have this problem solved, you can constantly improve the quality of your product. So what should we do with all that? Our team, have been developing and implementing the approach of the crowdsourcing for the last, well, I would say 10 years for all the needs of machine learning at Yandex. And we usually say that crowdsourcing is a specific way to design a business process. When you take some huge and complicated task, you decompose it into a set of small and trivial tasks and send them to cloud of independent performers. Every single task is very simple and requires minimal effort from a person, but then those minimal efforts of millions of people taken together are aggregated to result in the final solution of your big initial task. And usually the alternative to such approach is a very classical approach. Like, what do people usually do when they need to label some data set for the needs of their training new model or evaluating its quality? they either do that by themselves or they take, I don't know, a student, a relative, somebody else, saying, okay, here is the Excel file, please mark up those 100 lines with some criteria. And it works perfectly well until you need to scale it. And when you need to scale this, you would face certain problems. First of all, this is quite expensive, especially if you are spending your own time on this data labeling, because probably your time can be spent in a more effective way. It is unmeasurable and thus hard to control, because usually in such approach, you do not care about setting any formal quality control procedures or any measurements that the labeling is not biased somewhere or something else. And ultimately, this is almost impossible, very hard to scale. And the alternative approach is what we call the crowdsourcing approach, when the results should depend not on the individual skills of the performers, but rather on the quality of the whole business process. So we decompose this fuzzy business process into many simple steps. We formalize each step, we provide it with the guideline, we provide every step with some quality control. We probably automate some parts of that. And that's because every single step is much easier and shorter. There are much more people capable of performing these tasks. And thus we get the process which is measurable, because at every step we have some quality control. It is scalable because then it is only a question of how much money you insert as an input of this process, but it scales up very easily without having to reconstruct the whole architecture of the process. And in general, it is much easier to manage the whole thing. At the same time, of course, we cannot totally exclude experts in the professional field from this scheme. Usually we are using this kind of a pyramid approach when we have some high skilled managers who actually design the whole process and the pipeline. We have some experts who should provide some benchmark labels and training, and for example, do 5 or 10% of the whole labeling. And then 90% of the whole process is done by the crowd, where many, many different people independently perform these tasks according to the guidelines and looking at the benchmark labels which have been provided by the experts. Let me show you several examples of how it actually works in real life. So first, let's look at the example for segmentation for self-driving cars. Maybe you have heard of that, maybe not. Yandex is also developing the self-driving cars, and our self-driving car was, if I'm not mistaken, the first car in the world to drive without a driver on the streets of Las Vegas last year. So the team is very advanced in that field, and we are proud to say that they are powered by Toloka in terms of data labeling, because of course the self-driving needs a lot of such images to be labeled, with every object on an image segmented and highlighted with a polygon, because this is the data they need to train their computer vision models to safely navigate on the streets. And so, as I said, self-driving as a business, they need really hundreds of thousands those images labeled every month. And we needed to set up a scalable pipeline which would work effectively day by day. So how do we do that? So this is the final result. We need image with all objects on it highlighted with some polygons. So according to the logic of the crowdsourcing, at first we decompose this task and divide the task into multiple pieces. First of all, we divide it by the categories of the objects. And one person would get only the task about people and pedestrians on the street. Another person would get tasks about cars on the street. Another person would get tasks about traffic signs or something else. And the first task is, well, also quite simple. Please look at the photo and highlight all the pedestrians you see there. Then there is a second task, which is at the same time the quality control step, when we provide to some other people the mask of this polygon created by the first step, and ask them to read the specific guidelines and say, okay, is there a mistake? Was the polygon highlighted correctly, accurately? Is there anything missing? Whatever. They report either yes or not, and if they have discovered some mistakes, then we have the third iteration, where yet another task for yet another performer, where he or she sees this mask and the notion that there are mistakes, please correct them. It is once again sent to re-evaluation. And thus the process is repeated until we have all the objects highlighted without the mistakes. And this is the real production pipeline which drives our self-driving cars all over the world. There can be another example. For example, Yandex also has a voice assistant. Her name is Alisa or Alice, and one of the traditional tasks related to speech technologies is that they need to collect enough recordings of the activation word. So this personal assistant Alisa is activated when you tell her, hey Alisa. So we needed to collect large amounts of those recordings. It's quite a simple task, so we ask a person, please record on the mobile phone, say, hey Alisa, and then we do the validation. We send this recording to several people, asking them to listen to that and verify that, yes, there was the needed phrase said, the quality was fine, etc. And if they approve that everything was fine, and then we collect this data. If not, we reject and ask somebody else to do the same thing. And using this very simple pipeline, we managed to collect like several hundred phrases within 10 minutes and spending like several dollars for the whole process. There can be another example related to audio transcribition. It is a more complicated task where you have some voice recorded and you need to transcribe it into text. There actually are many specific nuances which performers need to know and understand and keep in mind. For example, what to do if there are some side noises on the background, or what to do if there is some foreign word in a speech, how to translate it, etc. There are so many nuances. So at first we set up training and selection part where we train performers to understand the guidelines, and those who pass it successfully grant the access to the further steps. So then there is quite a simple task: listen to the short audio and type what you have heard. And we ask several people to do that and calculate automatically the number of exact matches of the text which has been transcribed by people, and repeat the whole process until we get k exact matches. And that's how we get the final accurate result, accurate text transcribed. And this pipeline allows us to collect, like, for example, several thousand short phrases within several hours and within the budget of $10. The last example is not directly related to machine learning, but I wanted to include that into presentation to illustrate that actually the same approach is actually applicable to many other spheres and implementations. This is a funny task which I like. evaluate Alisa's sense of humor. So our voice assistant, Alisa, is known and loved by users because she has a strong character. She is a little bit sarcastic, and she likes to tell jokes to people, and people actually like to chat with her, not only to ask her to do something useful, but just to have a random small talk with her. And in order to be good at that, of course, as any live person, she needs to know some anecdotes and jokes and whatever. But how to provide her with, how should we set up the production pipeline for generating good quality of jokes for the voice assistant? That's the example what has been done at Yandex. There is a team of professional copywriters. They create some jokes, and then we need to somehow formally evaluate the quality of these jokes. And one may think that the quality of a joke is a very subjective thing, but using the crowdsourcing, it is possible to digitalize even that. And it is done quite simply. We just show two jokes to a person and ask, okay, please look at those two jokes and vote which one do you like better. And then we show the same pairs to many people. And then we collect those ratings and finally get the overall rating of the quality of the jokes and send the top of those jokes to our Alisa. And this is a funny and trivial task. It took us like less than 30 minutes and less than, well, $1 to evaluate 150 jokes, each by 20 different people. And of course, this is a very scalable pipeline that can be used on and on and on. So here we'll have some short break to take a look. Maybe there are some questions in a chat, or maybe you already have some questions. Please feel free to ask.
There are questions in the chat. Do you want me to?
I see them. I can, yeah, e-commerce, health, very interesting spheres and topics. How is the process so cheap? This is a very good question, and we will, I will explain that later. Where is the crowd coming from? Do we support different languages? Yes, and we will also answer that within 10 minutes. Yeah. Anything else you want me to answer right now before we proceed?
Usually people also ask, is that you have shown many different examples that Yandex uses. So usually people ask whether only Yandex using Telakai, or are there any other large companies or startups who are using crowdsourcing?
Yeah, thanks. That's a very good question. I will try to also answer that in more details later. Actually, we started as a project of Yandex. That's why we have a very large variety of different use cases related to Yandex. But Telakai is an open platform, and we already have several hundreds of different external companies and specialists who act as requesters on the platform. So yeah, it is open for anyone. I'm just choosing probably most illustrative examples. Okay, shall we then move on?
There are other questions in the chat.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see them. How do you see them? Daria, could you help me?
So there is a question from Shlomo saying, how do you ensure diversity in the crowd?
How do we ensure diversity in the crowd? This is a good question. Actually, there are two things. First is that the crowd is really big. It is really, really, really big. It is 8 million people already registered there. So it is automatically rather diversified. Another thing is that there are multiple tools for particular requester to make sure that he or she is granting access to its tasks to people of certain profile. That's how you may ensure diversity. For some tasks, it is not that necessary, like data labeling, for example. For some tasks, for example, side-by-side comparison or something else, this is truly an important part, and that's why there are tools. Maybe Daria will be able to show that on the real life demo, how you can filter and target specific audience.
There are two other questions. There are actually 4 other questions, but 2 of them are regarding the jokes. So the question is, how do you rate the jokes based on the pairwise comparisons?
Okay. I don't think I will be able to answer it fully, just because we don't have enough time. There are several algorithms of how you can score the items based on the pairwise comparisons. One of them is called Swiss system, if I'm not mistaken. You can Google that. So there are actually different algorithms which you can apply after you have item and the number of votes given to that item in every voting. How do we choose joke? Yeah.
There is another model, is not well known also. It is a Bradley-Terry model.
Yeah.
You can find
Alexei, you can also please write it in the chat, so guys.
Oh yeah, I will write.
Yeah, how do we choose the jokes to compare? Well, there is a team of copywriters who are preparing those jokes. Are there any entity relations tasks to be done on the platform? Yes, there actually are. Just recently, one of the global enterprises which is using Toloka had set up such a task. Maybe Daria will also show some examples of that.
Yeah, we have a preset template for this kind of tasks, so you don't have to even create it on your own. We have it in the choice of our preset templates.
Any examples of medical health realms? Well, to my understanding, the tasks related to computer vision and object segmentations are in the same way applicable to medical implementation, like detecting some objects on the, I don't know, Röntgen slides or something like that. And then there are some classification tasks. It's probably, we can speak a little bit later about particular use cases, because in the end, if practically any task can be decomposed into a set of such more or less standard tasks, either segmentation or classification or something like that. Thank you very much for the questions. They are really very interesting. Let's move on, and then we'll, within 15.
There's one more question. Just any relevant examples in the medical health realms?
Yeah, I thought that I tried to answer that, but I will try once again. I think that the cases of object segmentation for the computer vision are in the same way applicable not only for self-driving cars, but also for detecting some abnormalities on medical screenshots or something like that. Maybe if you share some more particular use cases, we can think of something else. Okay, shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Thank you very much. By the way, Daria asked me not to forget about that. Right now we have a special offer for the requesters. It is active until October the 11th. So if you register on Toloka.ai and you top up your account with $10, you receive twice more as a bonus to spend on a platform. As you have seen on the examples, it's probably not well, you can do quite a lot on this money, so you're welcome to try. So how does it in general work. First of all, here's the time to speak a little bit more about Telakai itself as an open crowdsourcing platform. It's a classical marketplace where we have requesters and anybody can become a requester, different companies, different researchers, anybody from any country can register as a requester. And there are many performers, we call them Tolokas, also from all over the world. They register to find some tasks which are interesting for them. Toloka is a service, is a Swiss legal entity and this service of Swiss company. And our team is distributed between different countries, between Switzerland, Belarus, Russia, and now we're expanding to some new countries. And our team members will be also in US and maybe some other countries. I personally am from St. Petersburg, Russia. So as I said a little bit earlier, we actually started as a small infrastructural team for the search at Yandex. Then with the time, we became a key infrastructure for the whole Yandex. If you take any service of Yandex, whether it is search, whether it is e-commerce or self-driving or ride sharing or whatever you take, everywhere there will be Toloka inside. And now we are growing to, we have become an open platform. We are going global now, and our aim is to become a key infrastructure for the whole AI industry worldwide, because we really see the necessity in the need for the labeled data on a large scale in many, many companies and countries, and we are ready to provide it for everybody. Our platform has been established already 6 years ago. We started in 2014. And since that time, we have been constantly growing both in the number of requesters and the number of performers. This year, we have the forecasts basing on the first 6 months of the year 2020. But we are observing a very significant growth. We expect to end this year with more than 6 million people who have done production labels on the platform within only this year, 2020. And while setting up the project on the crowdsourcing platform, every requester should answer 3 major questions: how to make it scalable, how to provide good quality, and how to effectively manage the budget. And I will try to explain each of those steps. So first of all is the question of scalability. Actually, that has been a surprise for me when I started to investigate this topic, because I did not look at it much before. Is that despite the fact that AI industry is so developed and so high-end technology based and etc., the questions of data labeling for many companies are still being solved in a very old school way. In the same, it could feel like there is, I don't know, not the year 2020, but the year 1950 outside. Because there are many cases, probably you have even heard about those in some media, when even the biggest and the fanciest technological companies somehow have these second-class, gloomy open spaces when people sit in tiny cubicles and are forced to perform routine tasks hour by hour, day by day. This is their full-time job, with no ability to have a break, with no ability to choose tasks or to switch from the content of which they have been tired or etc. And we, our team, we believe that this can and should be different, both for requester, it can be more effective towards the requester, and it can be done with a more dignity towards the performer. So we believe that those data labeling tasks can be done with while we provide maximum flexibility for the performers, when they can have flexibility to come and go, to choose whatever tasks they want with no requirements in regularity, with no obligations to follow one and the same task on and on. We know how to do that because there are some smart algorithms and mechanisms which help us achieve to help us get useful signal even out of minimal and irregular efforts of those millions of people. And right now on our platform we have about 8 million performers registered. They perform tasks on all the platforms. There is iOS and Android mobile app, and there is desktop website on which they can also provide tasks. We have people from all the major different countries, and they speak all the major languages. Of course, we have started with more Russian-speaking crowd, but right now we are very actively expanding to new markets and new countries, and just recently, like month after month, we get more and more people from different countries, from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, and we are going to expand more. In general, this approach has certain positive sides. First of all, this is the production which is going on continuously 24 hours, 7 days a week without any breaks, because if you're dealing with so large number of people, at every moment of time there would be somebody ready to perform your tasks. So this is an ongoing process. The second very important part is that because there are so many people, they are from different countries, they speak different languages, they have very different background. So appealing to the crowd, you actually get access to their collective experience, to their collective huge expertise, those wisdom of millions of people, which is impossible to achieve in any other way. And also this is the on-demand scaling, which is actually very important for many requesters, because when you have your own labelers team or something, you always need to care whether they have enough tasks, so there are no time wasted without tasks. And on the other hand, when you have some sudden extension of the number of tasks you need to label, it's just impossible to scale them within a moment. While when you're dealing with a crowd on a platform where there are lots of people and lots of requesters, at any time you need to extend your scale. It's not a problem, you just send more tasks and there are more people willing to perform them, and vice versa. If your project ends, you just switch it off and people choose other tasks and switch to the projects of other requesters, and nothing tragic happens. And this all works fine when two conditions are met. First of all, on the platform side, there should be effective tools for quality control, and secondly, requesters should actually understand the logic of the crowdsourcing approach and know how to build smart pipelines which are resistant to mistakes of single performer. And thus we will come to the second very important part of the whole process, is the quality. And actually, of course, on the one hand, dealing with some number of people who are sitting in an open space office and managing them is in a way easier and more trivial than managing the crowd of millions of unknown people. But providing that we know the methodology and you know how to do that, and you know how to use and which tools to use for quality management, it is not a problem at all. And in general, there are just 6 main things we need to keep in mind and to apply in order to create an effective quality management system. This is the composition of the tasks, right training and selecting of performers, smart quality control, some monetary motivation for the performers, and smart aggregation of results. So when we speak about quality control, there are actually not so many approaches, and they all can be applied together or in a row with some other, with one another. So first of all is what we call honeypots. This is a very simple idea. When you have some data set to be labeled, you take, for example, 10% of that and label these 10% by some very reliable experts or by yourself or in some other way. We call these honeypots, and you inject those honeypots into your whole data set, and you monitor automatically how people label these honeypots, and basing on whether the answers of a person with the honeypots match, you can extrapolate and estimate the expected quality of the answers on the other cases of this user. Then the second approach is overlap, when we give one and the same task to several people independently and monitor their agreement level and their consistency with each other, because we can assume that when a person is constantly disagrees with the others, probably he or she is wrong. Although there can be cases when the person is actually smarter than the majority, and even despite the fact that he or she disagrees with the majority, actually he or she is right while the majority is wrong. And we will speak about that a little bit later. There are certain mathematical models to deal with that. Then there is training and pre-selection of performers in order to make sure that performers actually got the idea of your guidelines and which rules to follow. Then there is post-verification, which you have seen on several examples previously. When one person performs a task, then this task is sent in overlap to several other people. They need to validate whether it has been done correctly or not. And if yes, the first person gets paid, and if not, the task is rejected and sent for re-evaluation. And finally, there is dynamic pricing depending on quality, when you can set the pricing for the task depending on the quality which performer is showing. And we recommend strongly this approach in order to make sure you motivate people try harder and motivate those who actually provide with the better quality labels so that they get paid more. So the concept of training actually is pretty much similar to the concept of training in machine learning. Our main goal is to set up such a scalable pipeline for training where you would spend the same amount of time for training any number of people as you would spend on training one person. And the idea is very simple. At first you provide people with some guidelines, with some theory. Then you show them practice with, for example, these are cases with known labels and explanations why here such certain labels should have been given, just in the standard, as in the standard machine learning. So people look at those examples and train their own neural network to understand the logic. Then there is exam, which is usually consistent of honeypots. So we can automatically calculate the number of matches of the answers of a performer with your honeypots. And then we automatically understand who have passed the exam successfully And thus, as the outcome, you get the trained performer who grants access to the further doing the tasks of your project. And then after you have collected all the labels, you would need to aggregate them to get the consensus final labels to believe. And here is a simple illustration. Let's imagine that you have a simple image classification task. There is some image and several options of answers. And you have given this task in an overlap 3 to 3 different persons, and they independently assign some label. With some probability this label is correct, with some probability this label is incorrect. And then you need to somehow aggregate the consensus, the final label out of their votings. So the simplest way is a simple majority vote. So you just calculate the number of votes given to each label and assign the final label to which the majority has voted for. And actually this model is very simple, but rather effective. It works fine for the majority of cases. Although, as I mentioned before, there can be more difficult cases when we should more rely not on the opinion of majority, but on the opinion of an expert or on the opinion of a more reliable person. So there is a bunch of different mathematical models to apply. And our experiments show that actually more sophisticated methods may improve the quality on the same data set up to 15% without doing anything, just with more smart applying just a smarter aggregation method. One of the most effective methods is actually the model of David and Skin. Maybe I would ask Alexei or Daria to type it in our chat so that people could see it. It's an interesting case because this model is very old. It had been developed in 1979 for the cases of not crowdsourcing and not data labeling, but for the applications of some medical sphere of how to interpret opinions of different doctors regarding the same patient. But surprisingly, this model is very effective in our case, and it is implemented inside the Toloka system, so you can use it just by pressing a button. So to sum it up, if you use those tools for quality control, like decomposition of the task into a set of simpler ones, training, quality control, and smart aggregation, you may be sure that you would get good quality and you would be able to fine-tune each part of this process in order to even more improve the quality. And the final part of that is related to pricing. So there are some real-life cases of how much some collecting of labels may cost on a platform. And there was a very fair question, how is it possible that the pricing is so low? And I would try to explain that. Actually, for the majority of the performers, Toloka is a good source of additional income, which gives them the opportunity to instantly, just by clicking several buttons on their mobile app, earn some money and without having any requirements, either for regularity or for whatever. Actually, the only strong requirement that we have towards the performers is that they should be human. If they are human and not robots, everything else is fine. So we are very strictly monitoring robots, but everything else, if you are human, then using those methods of quality control and methods of aggregating results, we can obtain useful signal out of humans' labels, even if those labels are very simple. if the efforts of every single person is irregular and very small, that does not matter for the whole process. And one more thing is that because Telakai does not force people to perform regularly, it attracts people with different backgrounds. So it's not like there are only somebody who is trying to earn as much money as possible. There are students, there are people who have some full-time jobs and they're just interested to look at what is going on, or there are some machine learning engineers who just want to look from the other side of how the labeling process actually works. So there are very, very different and diversified crowd in that sense. And of course, the pricing is mostly based on a pure marketplace balance, where performers rate requesters according to the 5-star rating system, and they see the rating of each project of each requester, so they are free to choose tasks basing on the price which is set by the requester and basing on the ratings that they see. And on the other hand, requesters, they control performers using those methods of quality control, which we have spoken before. And the platform itself provides the general rating of performers, ranking of tasks, and some general anti-fraud mechanisms. And the last thing, and the last very powerful tool for effective managing the budgets using the crowdsourcing is what we call incremental relabeling. And the idea is quite simple, since we can predict the expected quality of each performer, and we can predict the expected accuracy of the label they put. We can set the desired level of quality and then stop at the moment when we achieve this desired level. So let's imagine that we have some budget we are ready to spend on one label, and we need, for example, 5 random people to achieve the accuracy of 99% probability of this label being accurate for some random performers, or we can ask very high-skilled and trained performers, and even if 2 of them would be enough to achieve the same level of expected quality. Or maybe there would be one super professional expert and his or her opinion solely would be enough to achieve the same expected level of accuracy. And thus we can distribute our budget between the needed number of performers. And this instrument helps to solve actually 2 problems. For the requester, it is a powerful tool to stay within the fixed budget and not to spend more than you were ready to spend on data labeling. And at the same time, this approach incentivizes performers to apply more efforts and provide better quality, because in this setup, those who perform with better quality are paid better. So the last thing that I wanted to sum it up, hopefully I managed to illustrate that actually dealing with the crowd and setting up the data labeling on a large scale is a purely engineering task. When you have millions of people we have minimal requirements towards them. We require minimal efforts from those people. And at the same time, we deal with them, we deal with the crowd, we deal with their collective wisdom as with yet another computer cluster. And we set up, using the API, we set up automated pipelines for production of data labeling. What we actually see, well, we have seen it at first basing on our experience at Yandex, and now we are observing this in the industry on a whole, that actually expertise in solving data labeling questions becomes one of the key competencies in machine learning production. Frankly speaking, for engineers who work in the field of machine learning, it looks like this is one of the must-have expertise in the modern days. And we already see a demand for specialists who know how to solve the problem of data labeling on a large scale effectively. And this is actually an interesting field of activity and an interesting job, because it is somewhere between machine learning, between engineering and business, because the person who is in charge of setting up those pipelines should be at the same time with a strong technical background, at the same time should understand that anyway he or she is working with real people, so should take care of the performers, and at the same time understand the business needs and be able to design complex business processes to decompose the tasks and create those loops and pipelines and quality control processes in order to achieve effectively best results. And we have thought of how can we call this profession, and we have come up to such a definition, and that this is crowd solutions architect, because this is a person who actually designs solutions based on the power of the crowd. And finally, I would like to recommend some materials to learn more about, like we call it shortly CSA, Crowd Solutions Architect, to go deeply into this topic. So first of all, we invite all of you to visit our website, toloka.ai. There is a part called crowd science, because we believe that actually smart and effective dealing with a crowd is a special science. And there are interesting materials which you can look at. Then we actually see now that there is lack of such expertise in many companies and among many specialists. So we are open to provide this training for companies. This is kind of a corporate educational program. So if you feel that your company would need something like that, and your company is struggling with effective data labeling, please feel free to write to our manager Daria, and also fill in the form. We will reach you and discuss how we can help you with that. Also, our team is very active in some academical programs. We constantly participate in all A-level conferences all over the world. For example, recently we have participated with our tutorials at CVPR, and our paper is published on KDD this year. So please follow our tutorials. There are more materials to learn. And finally, we are proud to invite you to our workshop at NIPS, which will be online this December. And we at first invite you to participate and listen to different topics regarding the crowd science and questions of fairness in dealing with the crowd. And there is also the call for papers if you are interested in this topic until October the 9th. Please, you are welcome to join us. Once again, I will remind you that now you have a chance to get some bonus on our platform if you register there. And hopefully that is all from my side. Thank you very much. Let's see if we have any questions. Daria, could you help me? Are there any questions that I didn't know?
I saw there was a question about comparison between Telakai and Mturk, if you can comment on that.
Okay. Well, actually, how to say it in better words, everybody who has tried both Mturk and Tolaka see the difference. I would say that Mturk is a brilliant idea, but for some reasons it has not been developing much in recent years. And I would say that we are definitely comparable in terms of the amount of the crowd. We have now quite a diversified crowd already from different countries. And Toloka is more convenient and modern in terms of UI and interfaces and everything like that. And Toloka is definitely more advanced in terms of quality control tools, because they are not developed in the Mturk at all in the same way as they are developed in Toloka.
There are two other questions.
Okay.
Oh, you see. Okay.
Yeah, I see. Who owns the data once it uploads to a platform? Do you make sure only the customer who loaded this data can use it? Yes, of course. It is legally stated in our user agreement that the results of the labeling are the private, how to say it? So they belong to the requester, not to anybody else. Are there fixed fees per the use of the platform and fees per tagging? There is the flat fee. Right now it's about 20% for, like, you pay how much you pay $1 to the performer and 20% to the platform, about that. Yes, the algorithm of the David skin has been sent. Tutorials, la la la. Yeah. Any other questions before we proceed to real life demo? If not, I think I will stop sharing my screen, right, Daria?
Yeah, please. And
We
also,
have
I
one
believe
more
that
question.
One more question.
How to become? Olga, do you want to take it?
How to become an advanced labelist? Well, it's a good question. Actually, the diversity of different types and projects on Toloka is so high, so it's hard to answer it in general. There are some people who choose their favorite task, for example, 3D labeling for self-driving cars, and they constantly do that, and they gain more and more experience. But in general, all the data labeling, like anybody who is capable of reading the guideline and following the guideline can be a good labeler. So it's not some secret knowledge or something. Okay, thank you so much. I stopped sharing, and Daria, welcome.
Well, hi everyone. Kostya, do you want me to do the poll, or you would do it?
Didn't do that. I can do it. I can do it.
Okay, so before I start the demo, Kostya wanted to start a poll because we really want to get to know you guys. We want to know where you have used crowdsourcing before, and like what do you do in life. So if you can take a moment to answer the poll, would be really great. You should see it on your screen right now. And once we have results, we can share it with you too.
It's closed for some. Just let me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe that was me who closed that.
Okay, I launch it again. So please take a minute to vote, and we'll move forward to the demo.
Kostya, let me know once you stop it, so that we can share it with others.
Yeah, let's wait until 60–70% vote.
$70. Now we have 70, Kostya.
Okay, great. So okay, I'll end polling. let's see the results. I'll share the results. Okay, everybody can see.
Yeah, so that we see that it's almost like half by half, people who have never heard, but people who have tried it even. So we have a very diverse audience today. And we have a lot of data scientists and analysts and even students here as well, and unemployed. Everyone is here as well. So guys, I'm just gonna share my screen. I'm gonna stop the polling. Costa, sorry.
Yeah. Sure.
And just a moment. So everybody can share my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see.
Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to take another 20 minutes to show you a really quick live demo so that you will see everything that Olga shared with you, like basically in practice. So here you see the main page of Toloka. You would just come here and you would start. And as a requester, you will see this kind of dashboard. I have many different projects here because like as as my work I have to, like for my work I really have to launch many different projects, but today I will show you one. And Olga has already mentioned that our self-driving cars use Toloka for gathering a lot of data and for collecting and labeling different objects for their computer vision algorithms. So I will show you a very simple classification project where we will be asking the performers to say whether there are certain objects on the photos. So I will have a data set of around 100 photos of the road, like of different streets outside, and I will ask our performers to say whether there are traffic lights or not. Of course, this is a very simplified project, but this is kind of like a step one. If you decompose this whole pipeline that Olga showed, you would be asking performers to say whether there are certain projects and to outline them. So before I go into my project, I will just show you that Telakai has really a lot of different templates for very different tasks that you can already use. They have preset settings. You don't really have to change anything. You can just take anything you need. There are people who are asking for named entity recognition. We have this template here as well. So we have many different templates. I will show you the project that I have already started for you, just because we don't have a lot of time. So the project is called Are There Traffic Lights in the Picture? And I will delve into this right now. So the project itself is kind of like a skeleton. First, we need to determine like what's the problem that we are solving. And this is a simple classification, as we said. In the project, we have to write the instructions. We have to write a very simple description for the performers, kind of like to see the description of the project and to choose it from a list of different projects. As we said, Telakai is like a marketplace, so it's better to be concise and kind of like, I don't know, give more details to the performers. So here I'm writing the instructions of what do they actually have to do. So they just need to classify whether there's a traffic light, yes or no, or the photos failed to load. Of course, you can add like any pictures or videos in the instructions if you need any. Also, if we go down, we have to specify what kind of data we are uploading and what kind of data we want to label, for example. And in the output data, we'll have to specify what kind of data we want to receive. I can show it in code. So for example, here I'm saying that I am giving different links to the photos I have, like they're stored in some S3 space, and as an output data, I want to have like the answers in the format of saying yes or no, yes, there are traffic lights, or no, there are no traffic lights. This is very simple. And then, for example, when I get the output, I would just create another project and ask another crowd to outline those traffic lights or do something else. So after I have written the instruction, after I have specified what kind of input data and what kind of output data we need, then here I have an opportunity to create and to add up to my own interface. So to create a classification project, I used a simple template which was called image classification because I'm classifying images, but of course, if you want to add something, if you want to add different questions, or you want to play with the styles, or you want to, you know, play with JavaScript and add some kind of validation inside, then of course you can adjust the template as you want. So here you can preview and just make sure that everything works. Because I haven't uploaded the file yet, it's going to show me the cat, but like cats are our favorite. But later I'm going to upload the file. So here we can see that this is the task that the performers are going to see. They will have a questions, other traffic lights in the picture, and they just have to answer yes or no. I'll just put yes, just to make sure that the task is working. So after I have created the project and I have finished editing, I'm going to see this kind of page where I can see many different things, and I know it can be a little bit overwhelming at the beginning, but here I will see a list of different pools, as we call them. Sometimes people call them batches, or yeah, like groups of different, or piles of different, I don't know, tasks. But in every single pool we have we upload amount of data that we wanted to be labeled, and in every single pool we create quality controls, we create pricing, we also create different filters. So in one project we can have like 100 different pools which are targeted to different audiences, for example, or priced differently, or whatnot. So I'm just going to show you how the pool is configured. It's configured also quite intuitively. Here we are just putting the price first. So as Olga said, we have a markup on our platform, but it's only like 20%. And we put the price per task suite or task page. So for example, on one page, I'm going to have 10 different photos that I want a performer to classify. And here I put 1 cent per such page. Of course, we can configure dynamic pricing, but then it would be a bit more like advanced, but it's going to save you some budget, of course. Here in the section of performers, we can add very different filters. Here I added English as a language because I want English-speaking performers to label my photos. But of course, you can filter them by citizenship, by countries, by languages if you want to, or you can also assign your performers different skills so that you can kind of, you know, target different people among thousands of anonymous performers. So for now, I just need English-speaking people, and also we have a section with quality control. As Olga said, like it's really important to control the quality when you're working with so many people you don't know and you cannot personally control. That's why it's just important to add some quality controls to get the clean and trustworthy data. Here I have configured golden sets or honeypots or control tasks, as we call them. And I'm saying that if a person is giving me 3 responses and more than half of his responses are wrong to the control tasks, then we are going to ban him. And then we have a section with the overlap. This is always useful when we can compare the answers, when we need to give the tasks to many people and then we want to compare their answers in between each other or aggregate them and get a higher quality. And of course, we have a speed and quality ratio, like we can get like top 10%, top 20%. But because my task is like, it's not so complicated, I'm not going to use this much. So yeah, and of course I'm setting the time, it's in seconds, but it's around 5 minutes. So yeah, so the pool is done. And finally, I'm going to upload the data that's going to be labeled. So once you finish the pool, you are getting into another page that might also look a little bit, you know, heavy with a lot of data. But in general, this is the area on the left where we upload the data. And here, down here, we can see statistics of the pool, which are going to be updated when we start the pool. So here are the settings that I have just configured. I will just upload my data real quick. So I want in every single page 9 main tasks, and I want 1 control task just to make sure that I'm checking the quality in real time. I will upload very quickly the data set. As you can see, I have the links there. And before I start the pool, I will have to I will have to create the control tasks. So usually for like myself in the interface, I can do it, you know, like on the computer or anywhere else, but for the demonstration purposes, I will create it in the interface. So out of my 100 tasks, I will create like, for example, 5 or 10 control tasks so that the performers will be checked. As you can see here, I see the actual interface, and for myself, I have to answer and create control tasks. So here there is a traffic light. Here I can also like see them, and you can also see like the data set I'm using. Here I also see them. I'll just create a couple of more. Like for example, here I do not see any traffic lights at all. Let's find something that there are no. Yeah, so here there are no traffic lights. So yeah, let's say another one. So we have created the quality controls. Let's, oh, I have this panel. So yeah, so we have created the quality controls. We have created the pools. Everything is set. I'm going to start the labeling right now by pressing this yellow button, of course. And we can see that right now that the labeling has started. You see the progress already. So the blue part will show how many tasks are in progress. Basically, this is when the performers take the task but are still working on it. And then when we see the green light, like everyone is working right now, but like in a moment we will see some green light and some percentages of the progress of how the labeling is going. So while we are waiting, I can also show you how it looks to the performers. Here is the preview. So the performers see the exact same page. So they see the pricing up in the top. They will see the time they have. They can check out instructions, and they see 10 different photos on one page. So they have to answer everything and then submit. That's how they see the tasks. And it's also really good practice for the requesters to register as performers and check out other projects and how everything looks like. So you can see right now that already like in a minute, we have 60% done, and another part is still being it's still being worked on, but like the progress is going really fast. So we can wait for a couple of, so it's 75% right now. We can wait for a couple of more minutes, and then I will stop it, and then I'll show you how to aggregate the results very quickly. But in general, if you have any questions already, you can send them in the chat, and maybe someone can help me with the questions as well, because oh, actually I have opened up.
Yeah, sure, we can help you with the questions. So you're very welcome to ask anything.
Yeah, and I will update the page for now. So yeah, so now we have 93%. almost done. But the thing is that when we give a limit of 5 minutes, sometimes performers, they start and then they feel like they want to have a couple of like they want to have a cup of tea or something, and then they can even forget. So sometimes tasks can be on hold until the time expires, but here it looks like totally fine. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes. If not, we'll just stop and start the aggregation now. But you can see that, the speed is really high. The pricing is also really low here. And I don't know, hopefully you can go and see for yourself. Now I can just go around the statistics if you're interested. So here we can see that the approximate finish time of one page is only 5 seconds. And we can see the budget that we have spent. So we have 33 task suits, and for one task suit we paid like 1 cent plus a markup. So it's like 30 cents for this kind of work. Here we can also see how many people are submitting the assignments, how many people do not submit. Like I see here in the expired assignments, I see that one item is not submitted. Probably a person didn't like my task, and that's perfectly okay. I'm not forcing anyone. Anyway, so yeah, so
there is a question, if you don't mind. There is a question in the chat.
Could you
to see that, or
I don't see. Yeah, could you please tell me what's
are there? Michael is asking, are there guidelines all written in JavaScript, or can we load a Word page or something like that?
You mean, are there any guidelines for JavaScript in the templates already?
Probably the question is, can if they have some guidelines written in a Word file or something.
Of course, yeah. You can just, you can just upload it in the instruction. You can like copy paste.
Yeah, I think that he talked about the instruction.
Yeah, so you can just copy paste it if you have a Word. If you have a PDF, you can also screenshot it and put it there. So there are many different ways to do
And
that.
the second question there is there an option for the crowd to state if there is a problem with the questions? So how do you receive the feedback?
Well, here actually you can see in my interface that in the top corner you have projects, users, which is the information about the users who have been taking your project, skills, which is something I mentioned, profile, it's information about me as a requester, and then I have messages. So in the messages, usually we receive some, like requesters receive feedback from the performers, because performers can like write you a message if they see something that is not clear in the instructions, if they see that the assignment is not being submitted, probably you have a problem with the code or something. So this is the way we communicate. This is the way the requesters communicate with the performers, and they can send me messages. I can send messages to them. So it's a two-way street here. And actually, it's a very, very useful tool, because sometimes as a requester, you do not see that something's not working. You do not see that something is unclear, or you have just like things which are confusing because you know everything by heart already, right? But the performers see it and they give you the feedback, and then you say, okay, that's how I'm going to improve the project. So it's a very helpful tool. So Olga, are there any other questions, or I can just...
No more questions. Let's proceed.
Yeah, let's just, so we have 100%, which is done. And now we can aggregate the results, because for each single photo, we had 3 different answers. So this is the Davis-Keen aggregation model that Olga was mentioning before. We have it built in, so like you don't have to program it yourself. So I have just started it right now. Here we can see, we will see the progress in this progress bar. But in general, after we aggregate the responses, we will see each response with a confidence percentage, so that we will see which response we can trust totally, which responses are not as confident as we wanted to. So yeah, but usually David skin aggregation takes sometimes a couple of minutes, sometimes it takes like 5 minutes. So let's see. And yeah, and if you have any other questions, this is the perfect timing to ask me. Well, Olga, you have anything else to mention, or Alexei, or give me an idea what else can I explain here?
That's a good question. And in general, can you share your own experience? What are the kind of tasks which are easier to set up on the crowd, and which are the most frequent mistakes of the requester, which do not allow to achieve good quality or something else?
Right. Well, usually we see that requesters do not, like in general, like one of the most problematic things is that instruction is always like, it's a very weak spot, because even though you have like decomposed the problem, you have decided what kind of data you want and everything seems clear, then requesters do not pay any attention to the instructions at all. And they just, for example, upload like 5-page to the instructions, or just make upload something very messy, too colorful, too much information, unstructured information, and it's very actually impacts the quality badly, just because the performers, they're also humans and they cannot read this kind of instructions, because the instructions are just in a very poor quality. So instructions are like the most obvious things, but the most common thing for requesters to forget about. And we always try to remind them. But usually like the most common like projects we have are classifications, I don't know what else, but most complicated ones would be like content generation, or like when the performers actually really have to create something or brainstorm something or bring you information or something else. So yeah, but we really do have many different services and requesters who use different projects. So for now, David Skin is being all right, he's being fast. Okay, we just need a couple of more. I think we just need a moment for it to complete. And then we can see. I see another question in the chat. Is there some support, advice, consultancy for the requesters? This is a great question. And actually, like we provide consultancy, like consulting services, if you call them, about how to about the methodology, about how to use crowdsourcing for your own cases. We have sent out the form just a couple of, I don't know, 10 minutes ago in the chat. I'm just going to copy and paste it once again. You can apply. You should just mention in this form, you should just mention like your name and the areas you're interested in and the tasks you're interested in mostly. And then we can keep in touch and have like separate sessions or on certain topics, and find solution that's going to suit your business and your problems. So as you can see that the David Skin aggregation is ready. I'm just going to download the file really quickly, and I'm going to show you the results. Do you see my screen right now?
No, it is stuck.
Okay, great. Because I'm in my, so you do not see the Excel file right now, right?
No, now we see you.
Great. Okay, so now you can see the Excel sheet, and these are the aggregated results. You can see that here I have all those like 100 pictures that we were evaluating, in the input image. In the output results, we see okay or bad, which says yes, there are traffic lights, or no, there are no traffic lights. Here we can see the confidence in percentages. And here we see the like the golden sets that I was adding to the data set. So for example, sometimes like usually we have the percentages like 90% or something like 99%, but here you see like in this case it's 70%. So probably this would be a case that we would be more suspicious about and double check. But yeah, but this is a very useful tool to also kind of control the quality, to see whether you can, you know, whether you can trust every single data you receive, or there are some cases that you want to look at second time as well. So my demo is finished. Kostya, we have finished on time. If you guys have any other questions about Toloka, we will be hanging around in this chat. Also, Olga, me, and Alexei, we will share our emails in the chat as well. Feel free to reach out by the forum, or feel free to just email us. We are always very open and ready for collaborations. Especially, we love to educate, and we love people who also love to collaborate on different educational projects or others. So thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you very much, Daria, Olga, Alexei. It was an amazing meetup. I'll take another 5 minutes to talk about why data projects. So let me share my screen. I believe it won't take more than 5 minutes. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I believe most of the people that joined this meetup probably heard about Y Data program, career advancement program in data science. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kostya Kilimnik, head of Y Data here in Israel. And I'll talk just a few minutes about Y Data projects, and it's part of our program, and I believe very important part of it, because for anybody who wants to enter this field, industry projects is quite important to talk about it during the interviews, and you know, to do something real in data science, not just toy projects or Kaggle projects. So our next cohort of students will start their studies in a month, at the end of October. And right now we are entering this process of preparing a portfolio of industry projects for the next cohort of students. So we create different partnerships with companies here in Israel, and we create this portfolio of projects. So the company offers a project, we suggest it to our students, and it's kind of win-win situation when on the one hand a company can meet new talent and do something that probably they didn't have resources or time to eventually deal with that, and our students get this experience and insights from the industry. And we are looking to create this match during the next 2 months. So the duration of the project is 6 months during January, June. It's actually 2021 will be. The scope is 200, 300 work hours in total, and in teams of 2-3 students. And we provide our guidance from Y Data 1 weekly hour. The company committed to provide guidance on their side, and we actually create this match between the student's choice or priority of from the catalog with actually with the company. And here's this timeline of the projects. So right now we are in project design and definition phase. And after that, our students select the projects, and during the January next year, they'll start working on them. And in July next year, they'll present projects, a demo day. Hopefully, we won't have COVID-19 by then, so we'll be able to have some offline big event that we couldn't do this year. And this is our partners in 2020. So you can see some well-known companies on Israel market and globally. And this is not the full list. Yeah, a few more. And so with many of these companies, we'll keep working, and they will stay our partners, but we also seeking to expand our network of partners. So if you work or your friends work for some companies that probably might be interested to provide us such a project, we'll be happy to hear from you. So this is the word cloud of different fields that our projects deal with. So we can see that many projects deal with classification, segmentation, but you can see many different fields: anomaly detection, OCR, clustering, and so on. Incremental system. Those are just few examples of projects. The full catalog of this year projects can be downloaded on our website, ydata.com. But here I just chosen a few projects from different fields, some of them from computer vision, some from NLP, anomaly detection, from fields like smart mobility and manufacturing. And here's something that I'm particularly proud of. It's one of the projects from our first year in 2019 that eventually, after YData, they won the competition, and they were the best project of the year. And eventually I pushed these graduates to keep working on this project. It was a bit research project, and eventually, together with Professor Haid Greenspan from Tel Aviv University, they wrote a paper, and they were accepted. This paper was accepted to one of the best conferences in medical imaging, MIC-AI, and they presented in 3 weeks, I think, in the middle of October. So it's something that we are very proud of, and we hope that more projects will continue and become scientific papers, even though it's not a mainstream, because most of the projects are industry oriented, but still. Okay, so if you work for a company's data AI department and you believe that your company might be interested, you can talk to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, for example, or just write an email to ydata@yandexteam.com, and I will happy to be in touch and to check the potential of this partnership. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody who stayed today. I hope you enjoyed the meetup. The recording of this meetup will be available tomorrow morning, I believe. We'll send an email, and also we'll publish it meetup. That's it. So Shana Tova to everybody, and we'll see you next meetups.